What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some insane battles with the ultimate core breaker for the current Open Great League meta, an XL Shadow Magnemite. This thing is super attack weighted, but its typing is incredible, being able to break the Wigglytuff plus Gelatin core, as well as the Altaria plus Empoleon core, amongst many other top meta Pokemon. Previously, its biggest issue which made this Pokemon pretty much unplayable in recent seasons was that Mud Slappers were absolutely everywhere, but after the nerf they are much less common, so in most bad matchups, Magnemite can, at the very least, still reach a charge move before being farmed down. Now I'm pairing it in an ABB style team with Togedemaru as the safe swap to bait out the hardest answers to the Magnemite in the back, along with the newly buffed Shadow Waterfall Milotic in the lead, which was of course needed for the ground and fire type Pokemon, which my backline does not want to see. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What has been your go-to core breaker for the current Great League meta, and which common cores does this Pokemon break? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Milotic into Altaria. So of course, not a great matchup for me. It used to be okay with Dragon Tail, but of course this season I am running Waterfall. Here we're going to swap into Togedemaru, and I can still outpace to a Gyro Ball, not expecting a shield, as honestly most people do run Fell Stinger. I think Gyro Ball is probably the play just because you can still throw a hard-hitting move without debuffing yourself. However, unfortunately, because I didn't debuff myself there, Flamethrower didn't quite KO, and then they come in with a Fortress. Now Fortress on Volt Switch is a bit of a core breaker, of course, gonna hit for super effective with the Volt Switch into Milotic, and also Sand Tomb is gonna hit for double super effective into my backline, which certainly is not ideal, but we did resist the Volt Switch damage on the Magnemite. We build up a ton of energy before swapping out into Milotic, but the opponent gonna do the same thing here, able to catch a resisted Aqua Tail onto a Shadow Empoleon. However, the opponent is also on Waterfall on their Empoleon, so the opponent will be able to shield once, fully farming down here, but I've already got back-to-back discharges, and the opponent does not throw straight away. That is huge for me because now I don't need to use a shield. The opponent still over farming, maybe just not realizing we had back-to-back already there, trying to throw it on good timing, and as a result, we can now just shield here. The opponent, they don't quite have back-to-back, but it doesn't matter anyways. Volt Switch gets the farm down, and we reach a Magnet Bomb up against Altaria. That's gonna be enough damage to get the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up there into the next battle. I see Shadow Milotic into a Medicham. So this is going to be a fairly neutral matchup here. The opponent, of course, going to be on, well, very likely to be on Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch. Going to no-shield the first charge move here, force them to full send a Dynamic Punch, which they do. And now I'm actually going to go for a Wrap. Now, I don't expect a shield here. However, I do want to maybe debuff their defense there, force them to throw energy straight away, and then look to come in with my Shadow Magnemite. Of course, Dynamic Punch is going to hit for huge damage, but these Volt Switches are absolutely shredding through their HP right now. I can safely shield it and go for a full farm down, so the opponent is once again going to swap into a Fortress. But once again, we've got a lot of energy here, so I'm going straight for Discharge. Discharge, gonna be no-shielded. I don't throw straight away just because I didn't quite think Discharge would KO, so instead opting for the extra fast move. Still can't quite get a full fast move farm down, but I'm going to catch onto Togedemaru, where of course Sand Tomb is still double super effective, but I am able to tank it. Now let's see what the opponent wants to do here. They're going to come in with a Guzzlord, but we have the energy advantage, and now I can reach a Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball, not shielded, it does big damage, and it will force the opponent to throw some energy. The opponent gonna go straight for Brutal Swing. I can now go for one Volt Switch, and then fire off the Discharge. This is honestly a slightly risky bait here, just because I do have back-to-back Magnet Bombs. The opponent not able to make a catch there, meaning Magnet Bomb will be connecting, it gets the KO, and a single Volt Switch, barely taking out the Medicham, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. We're going to see Altaria in the lead once again. So once again, not ideal for me, but the opponent swaps out at the same time there, and that is huge for me. Of course, avoiding my Milotic seeing the Jellicent, which of course is going to completely wall it, as we've only got water and normal type fast move pressure and charge move pressure. We can now go for Wild Charge, get the one shot there. They come back in with the Altaria, and that's fine with me. We've already got a second Wild Charge loaded. Wild Charge is going to connect, and it does big damage. That actually puts them into range where I can shield once with the Shadow Magnemite, and even if they bait with a Sky Attack here, it doesn't really matter. They are not reaching another charge move. We go for a full farm down. The opponent's final Pokemon is going to be Azumarill, and this is looking absolutely fine for the Shadow Magnemite. We go for 2 Volt Switches, fire off the Discharge. We're going to do the exact same thing once again, and this should be grabbing the final shield. Now, technically, we don't need our Magnemite to win this game here, but we can go for yet another Volt Switch, fire off yet another Discharge. Discharge number 3, all shields are down, gets the KO up against the Zoom Reel, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's won there into the next battle. We see Blastoise in the lead. So I'm going to be swapping into my Togedemaru, and the opponent comes in with a Clodsire, which is not ideal for me, but we do have Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball is going to hit fairly hard in this matchup. It won't be enough damage to two-shot them. However, if they do overfarm and allow me to reach a second one, that might set up a quite nice farm down for the Milotic. So the opponent is going to fire the Charge Move on CMP. I'm just going to no-shield this. Earthquake gets the one-shot very comfortably, but now we can come back in with Milotic, and they will reach a Charge Move, but this is just going to be a non-stab Stone Edge. So I'm going to no-shield this, doesn't deal too much damage, and let's see, they come back in with the Blastoise. I'm going to swap out straight away, and their final Pokemon is a Licky Licky. Now, this is the one thing I will mention about the Magnemite, is that it does still feel very clunky, and especially with a lot of really fast-paced Pokemon out there, with like 3-turn fast moves, it's really difficult to throw your charge moves on good timing here. So as you can see, I throw back-to-back there, giving a full rollout in for free. Otherwise, if I tried to go for the extra fast moves there, they would outpace me, and they still have the opportunity to unfortunately snipe with the Blastoise. They can swap out, get off a full rollout, and then throw the charge move before I can throw a Discharge, which is a bit annoying there. Honestly, I should have seen that coming and swapped out, but either way, unfortunately, it looks like I will be losing this game. I don't think Milotic can tank even a resisted Hydro Cannon, and unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. But GG's to that trainer there. Very nice combo play with the Blastoise. But into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Milotic into Wigglytuff. So again, not the best matchup for me. It's not the worst, actually. But we're going to swap into Togedemaru, and we needed to bait this thing out because this is a massive issue for the Magnemite. Now, we actually end up grabbing a shield advantage, which I don't really understand why. Because, of course, we only had resistant moves to throw there. But either way, I'm going to come in. Hopefully, they don't have Solar Beam because that would be quite awkward. But they go for Rock Tomb. They debuff my attack stat. And that actually gives me slightly more farm here. Now, because they've got Wigglytuff in the lead, I'm expecting a Jellicent in the back, so I go for Wrap. I'm going to swap into my Shadow Magnemite, and despite the fact that I do resist the charge moves here, I might as well shield. The opponent going to go for an Icy Wind, and it is going to be the Jellicent in the back. I mean, this meta is just so predictable right now. We can go straight for Discharge. Discharge, going to grab the final shield, and here I might as well just farm up to back-to-back charge moves. I'm going to shield the Surf. Surf is, of course, going to grab the final shield there. We can now farm up to back-to-back. And this is going to be game over. I am debuffed here, but it doesn't make a difference. Discharge still easily gets the KO, and we've even got a Magnet Bomb loaded. Magnet Bomb, super effective, takes out the Wigglytuff, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I'm going to see Shadow Milotic into Jellicent. So once again, not a great matchup for me. We'll be swapping into my Togedemaru, and this time met with a Shadow Typhlosion. And here, I don't throw on the best timing. It doesn't really make a difference there. I'm only getting off one charge move anyways, but of course, Wild Charge is going to grab a shield advantage. I'm now going to come in with the Shadow Milotic, and I will just no-shield this. I should just barely live a Thunder Punch here. So I'm going to no-shield, and the opponent goes for the extra Incinerate, which means they've now put themselves into one Volt Switch farm down range, and of course, 4-turn up against 5-turn. I should get the KO before they get off a single fast move. Now the opponent swaps, but they swap into Credilli. We're going for Magnet Bomb. Magnet Bomb barely doesn't get the KO, and that is actually agonizing for me. Now, honestly, I should no-shield here, but Magnemite, you can't really no-shield even resisted charge moves because it is so glassy. You're going to see the Hex damage is going to add up over time, but I still feel like I should outpace the Jellicent here to back-to-back charge moves, so I shield the Surf. But no, they actually outpaced me just barely by a single turn. Surf gets the KO up against the Shadow Magnemite, and unfortunately I lose that game, despite the fact that Magnemite had the typing to core break the rest of their team once the Typhlosion was gone. But either way, GG's to our trainer into the next battle, and that is sort of the limit of the Shadow Magnemite, is that it is just a very glassy Pokemon, so you do need shields in play for it to do any decent damage there. But anyways, into the next battle, and we see a Licky Licky. Try to catch a charge move there, doesn't work out, but the opponent actually swaps at the same time and into a Jellicent. Here, I don't really know why I stopped attacking there, because if I threw that extra Thunder Shock, I would have thrown at the same timing anyways. What I wanted to do was make sure I threw the Wild Charge at the time of taking damage there, so I didn't debuff myself, but either way, it doesn't really make a difference there. We're now going to come in with the Shadow Magnemite. I'm going to shield. I'm going to have to double shield, actually, I believe, as the opponent does have quite a lot of energy, but they actually swap back into Licky Licky, and I'm taking no risks. Magnet Bomb gets the KO there very comfortably. If they come back in with a Jellicent, opponent then, I feel like we already know what the final Pokemon is going to be. They're looking to get the KO here, but I'm just going to use my final shield. They fire off the Surf. We get the Volt Switch farm down. And no, actually, never mind. I thought it was going to be a Wigglytuff in the bag, but it's not. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it is a Pokemon that Shadow Magnemite could very comfortably one-shot with the discharge, so the opponent just concedes the match. But into the next battle, big surprise, we're going to see another Jellicent. What the heck is going on here? Anyways, we're going to swap out, but the opponent comes in with a Credilli, and that is absolutely fine with me. Of course, once again, opponent probably expecting Fell Stinger as the coverage move, which I just don't see the point in using. We are now going to no-shield as Rock Tomb, much more comfortably tanked onto my Togedemaru than it would be onto my Magnemite. So here, we're going to go for another Gyro Ball, taking no risks. Gyro Ball going to be shielded, and you know what? Let's just get rid of this thing. We're going to go for another Wild Charge here. Wild Charge gets the KO. And the opponent's now going to come in with a Talonflame, but that's okay. We've got switch advantage. This game should be over. All I need to do now, come in with the Shadow Magnemite, and I cannot allow a farm down up against my Magnemite if I throw a charge move here. So what I'm going to do instead is just double shield and then commit to a full Volt Switch farm down. I believe I should leave this matchup still just barely healthy enough to live and incinerate. However, we do get fairly low. This is quite risky, but we barely hang on. Honestly, I probably should have just thrown the move straight away, just on the odd chance that incinerate did get the KO there, because losing all of that energy would have been absolutely catastrophic. But we get to back-to-back anyways. I'm able to take out the Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Shadow alone and Ninetales in the lead. This is a fine matchup for me. I will eventually swap out of this matchup most likely, but the opponent is going to throw a charge move. They go for Chilling Water, debuffing my attack stat. So, I'm now going to go for an Octail, which might not make a huge amount of sense just because I have now just been debuffed, but I'm hoping that is going to put them into range where a single Wild Charge will get the KO. I'm going to no-shield the first move as they fire off a Nightshade. I'm now going to look to overfarm and throw a Wild Charge just before they reach the next charge move. Wild Charge doesn't quite put them into farm down range, but I can fire off a second Wild Charge and guarantee the KO. Not ideal for me there. Of course, if I didn't get debuffed with my Milotic, then that would have put them into perfect farm down range, but the opponent's going to come in with a Quagsire, and this is a Pokemon that Magnemite has to avoid at all costs. Obviously, I mentioned that Mud Slap did get nerfed. Even Mud Shots, whilst dealing less damage this season, are going to shred through the Magnemite's HP, but the opponent making a very nice catch there, catching an Aqua Tail onto their Shadow Ninetales. I'm going to bank some energy swap, catch the charge move onto my Magnemite here, and does this really help me? Because that does a ton of damage. Honestly, at this point, I think what I should be doing is shielding and going for a Magnet Bomb. I wasn't sure who would win CMP out of Milotic and the Quagsire, but Quagsire, as I found out recently after using it for the first time in absolutely ages, is actually fairly bulky. But either way, GG's to our trainer into the next battle. We're going to see Mightyena in the lead, so this is going to be a neutral matchup. I feel like I already know the team for this Pokemon as well, because Mightyena is often paired with a Wigglytuff and a Steelix in the back, which you might think Steelix would be a pretty big problem for my backline. However, they are typically on Thunder Fang as well as Psychic Fangs and Crunch, so no Earthquake usually, which means actually not that bad of a matchup for the Shadow Magnemite. As of course, I am also resisting their Fast Pressure. I'm going to look to overfarm and fire off the Magnet Bomb. This is going to be single resisted, discharge is double resisted, and you can see two Magnet Bombs will pretty much KO a Shadow Steelix. They go for a Psychic Fangs bait there, which is not really ideal for me, but I'm now just going to look to overfarm, fire off another Magnet Bomb. This is going to grab the first shield from the opponent, but now we're going to come in with the Togedemaru. Now, it looks like the opponent is lagging there. It's kind of hard to tell there, but either way, we just continue to overfarm. I'm going to shield. They go for a Crunch, so they reveal they are not on Earthquake, but I'm now going to farm up to back-to-back charge moves. Magnet Bomb, not going to be shielded. It gets the KO, and they come in with their final Pokemon, and they reveal it is going to be the Wigglytuff. At this point, Gyro Ball gets the KO there, but we are already at the next Gyro Ball, and Gyro Ball is going to hit for super effective damage. It will just barely not quite get the KO, but one more Thunder Shock does the job, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Togekiss in the lead, so I do have two better options in the back. However, I can't swap out of this matchup because they will be ahead on energy, and of course, Aura Sphere is going to deal big damage. The opponent fires off the charge move. They then make a catch onto Licky, which honestly, I don't really mind too much because this, once again, should now put them into range where a single Wild Charge will KO. Now, this could be crazy if they're on Earthquake, but I'm going to no-shield anyways, and it is just the Shadow Ball, and now I can look to overfarm. I'm going to go straight for Wild Charge here, not going for Gyro Ball. I don't really mind debuffing myself as Togekiss has no fast move pressure into Togedemaru, but their final Pokemon is going to be a bulky ground type in the form of Diggersby. Now, I can reach back-to-back Gyro Balls before they fully farm me down. However, I am in a very tricky situation because they do go for a full farm down. So this part, we have a Charge Move on Milotic, but I make a big mistake there. I don't know why. I forgot what side my Charge Moves are on, so we don't end up throwing. The opponent swaps out there, and I do manage to just barely bank some energy before swapping out. However, we are so low on Milotic. I needed to land at least one Waterfall's worth of damage onto the Diggersby here. As you're going to see, Magnet Bomb, I keep getting these mixed up, does big damage, but it doesn't quite KO. The opponent has the Scorching Sands loaded. Scorching Sands gets the KO, and they can just farm me down. They still had a shield in play, which is why I didn't bother throwing, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Spiritomb in the lead. So a neutral matchup here. I am going to stay in initially and fire off the Arctotel. And Arctotel is likely going to grab a shield as the opponent can now look to debuff me with a Rock Tomb. I'm going to show the first Charge Move as well here, as I do want to preserve some HP on the Milotic in case they do have a Fire type or a Ground type Pokemon in the back. We go for Arctotel number 2. That puts them into range where I can actually fully farm them down. Now I'm going to swap out straight away into Togedemaru, going straight for Gyro Ball here since they are on Acid, which means I can now outpace them. And the opponent, once again, just not expecting Gyro Ball. And at this point, it's game over. The opponent decides to concede the match there. Might have had something weak to the electric typing in the back, but either way, GG's to that trainer. Now into next battle, and one of the hardest core breakers for this team. I guess technically, like Togedemaru and Magnemite, they are sort of equally walled against each other there, unless they're running Crunch. But either way, it is still very difficult to get rid of that Charger Bug. The opponent comes in with a Guzzlord, but I have a huge energy advantage, which means I should reach back-to-back Gyro Balls here. I'm going to no-shield the Brutal Swing. They cannot farm me down. I tried to throw on CMP, and it works out perfectly as the opponent does throw the second Brutal Swing straight away, and they actually no-shield that. So I flip the switch advantage, but does that really help me here? We go for Wild Charge, that connects, and I'm actually swapping into Shadow Milotic. This seems like a strange decision, but I need the neutral fast move pressure here. But the opponent makes a very nice catch there, catching onto Florges, and whilst that doesn't seem like much, unfortunately, because they swap out there, they get a zero-turn swap, they get the energy advantage, which means they can just barely outpace to a Trailblaze and get the KO. Now, of course, they are boosted. Chilling Water is going to hit for big damage, so I'm actually going to shield this, but also Chilling Water is now going to mean that I don't get a full farm down, and the opponent can snipe with the Charger Bug. Now, I do resist the X-Scissor. I'm able to tank it. I try to swap and catch the next Charge Move, but the opponent holds on to the energy. They fire off the Charge Move now, and of course, from this range, anything they could possibly throw will get the KO up against the Shadow Magnemite, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Kanto Marowak. So didn't see very many Mud Slappers with this team at all, but luckily we do see it in the lead. The opponent's going to swap into Blastoise. That is fine with me. I'm going to bank all of that energy and come in with the Togedemaru. The opponent fires off the Hydro Cannon. I'm just going straight for Wild Charge. I am not messing around here. Wild Charge is going to KO, and the opponent is going to come back in. And with the Marowak, they do have 2 Mud Slaps to farm me down, which I thought was quite surprising there after debuffing myself. But I'm now going to come in with Milotic, and I actually go for a Wrap. I expect to grab a shield here as the opponent does have a lot of energy, and now of course these waterfalls are going to deal big damage. The opponent fires off the Bone Club there. I can now let this go through as I should live a Bone Club, but I do expect the opponent will swap out straight away, so I swap at the same time, and that is going to be huge for me. Of course, unfortunately, the opponent does get a 0-turn swap, whilst mine does cost 1 turn, but you can see Shadow Magnemite doesn't care. We get a full Volt Switch farm down. I've got back-to-back discharges stored. First one should grab the final shield, and despite being double resisted, a discharge from this range will be enough damage to take out the Shadow Mud Slapper, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Jellicent in the lead. So once again, not great for me. Going to be safe swapping into Togedemaru, and the opponent is actually going to throw a Charge Move immediately. I'm fine with this. I'm going to no shield. They just bait with a Surf. I don't really mind that. Unfortunately, they come in with a Drapion, and I'm not quite at back-to-back Wild Charges yet, but the first one is going to connect. It does big damage. I did think about no shielding and then just coming in with the Shadow Magnemite, but I wasn't certain that 2 Volt Switches would get a full farm down, and I definitely do not want to shield the Magnemite. So we actually shield shield there, looking to grab a shield back from the opponent, and I'm able to do exactly that. The opponent goes for the Arc Tail, fine with me. I'm going to come in and get the energy advantage on the Shadow Magnemite as they come back in with the Jellicent. And again, this is absolutely fine. If they're coming back in with the Jellicent, then this game probably is already over. So I'm going to shield here, and I should be able to go for a full Volt Switch farm down at this point. So we shield the Surf, we're going for the full farm down, and the opponent's going to have a Wigglytuff in the back, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's opponent is the next battle. We're going to see a Medicham in the lead once again. So once again, going to play out this lead matchup here. We will just narrowly lose this in the zero shield scenario, but I don't really mind. Going to no shield here as the opponent is going to go for the Dynamic Punch. I'm now going to go for an Aqua Tail this time around, just because this will force the opponent to throw their energy straight away. If they don't throw straight away, I'm going to reach a second Aqua Tail, so I don't really mind that. I'm going to no shield this. Dynamic Punch is going to get the KO. I'm not going to come in with my Togedemaru this time around because I thought maybe I could shield once and fully Thundershock farm them down. However, unfortunately, it looks like I barely won't be able to do that, so that is not ideal. Of course, this is a matchup where having maybe Fell Stinger would be quite nice, as I could just throw a Fell Stinger bait and get the KO. But now they're going to come in with a Corviknight, and this is actually not that good of a matchup. As you're going to see, these sand attacks absolutely shredding through my HP, but they're only going to reach an Air Cutter. This is double resisted, which I am able to tank, but they're going to come in with a Furret. And Furret, unfortunately, if they're on Brick Break, there is nothing I can do. If they don't have Brick Break, I should be able to win this game because they're only going to have resisted charge boost to throw, but Gyro Ball, going to grab the shield there. I have to no shield the first, just in case it is a Brick Break anyways, but that is going to put me into range where they can just fully farm me down, and so unfortunately, there's not a lot I can do here. We go for another Gyro Ball, hoping they would just no shield, but the opponent, of course, they still had that shield. They can Sucker Punch, farm down the remainder of my team, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's opponent into the final battle of this video, picking up a great lead this time around into a Talonflame, and the opponent's going to swap out into a Primeape. Now, this is a bit tricky for me because I do kind of need to preserve some HP on my Milotic because whilst, yes, I've got two Electric-type Pokemon in the back, Incinerates are just going to shred through me. But at this point, I'm going to look to shield here and then commit to a full Waterfall farm down, or actually maybe not. Instead, I'm going to swap into my Magnemite, get the Volt Switch farm down. If they come back in with the Talonflame, which they do, I can still reach a Discharge before they get the full farm down. Discharge, not going to be shielded, but they've got a double fighting backline, and this is a little bit tricky for my Togedemaru. But that's okay, they don't have too much fast food pressure since they're not on counter, so we're going to come in with a Togedemaru, and I'm going straight for Wild Charge. Wild Charge should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and it does exactly that. So now I'm going to swap back into my Milotic, fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail does decent damage, but does that put them into Thundershock farm down range? I believe they are one away from back-to-back charge moves here, so it is going to be super close, or at least two away, sorry. But we're going to shield, but we can go for the Thundershock farm down just before they reach another Rage Fist, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.